represent the Paulson estate in the sale of their property, which is adjacent to the subject property. Keith and Jane Paulson, who were previous owners of the property, passed away in May in a plane crash. As strange as it seems, on my way over here, I got a message from another realtor. By the time I get back, there's going to be an offer in my computer for full price or close to full price on that property. What happens after that is going to depend largely what happens here, because I believe the value of this property will go down if this project is approved. Unfortunately, I wasn't notified about the property by the owners until the story poles was taken down, so I don't know exactly where it is. They told me that there's a small ocean view. They said it is in the ocean view. One thing about a turbine is that it turns around. It's different than a telephone pole. It attracts your eyes to that particular spot. So having a wind turbine in the view, I think is definitely going to bring down the property value, not only of this property, but others as well. One thing that wasn't considered when you initially approved this was that the property to the east of the Paulsons is now State Park as well. I don't think anybody from State Park or from planning went to that property and looked at that view until after the story point was taken down. So there is public view to the east of the Paulson lot, as well as the Paulson property. One other item that I've considered as being a realtor, when we sell properties on the coast, we disclose if there's an empty lot in front of us, that this area is 22 feet height, this area is 28 feet height. We have to start disclosing to everybody that the house next door or the empty lot next door may have a 40-foot wind tower right in their view. That's certainly going to have a huge impact on property values and tax money to the county. So Keith, when he was alive, he supported this project. He walked, I believe, with Mr. Woods on the property to try and find an alternate location. He was concerned about his view, the property value, and so on.
Thank you, Mr. Deeds. Warren Wade. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Supervisor Smith.
This is perhaps to staff. Mr. Deeds just referred to another person to the east, I believe, Paulson, which is known as Paulson Estate, referencing that it's did you say a new acquisition by State Parks? And if so, when did that occur, and what are the time frames we're talking about the initial approval?
Well, I'm not certain, but when, I guess in the last couple of years, it changed hands from Timber Company to State Parks. I talked with Neil a couple of months ago after it was approved and kind of reminded him of that. And I believe after that he had someone go out there from State Parks to look at it. But by the time they did, the storage pole was already down, from what I understand. So that's public property up there as well, which was never considered.
So is the point you're making that it's a concern because of the visual impact to yet another adjacent owner?
Well, I realize that view sheds from private property don't have the same kind of weight, aren't considered like they are from public property. There's public property adjacent to the Paulson lot, although there's no paths under at this point. Who knows in the future?
Thank you.
Mr. Wade, followed by Tony Orr.
My name is Warren Wade. I'm the Conservation Chair of the Mendocino Coast Audubon Society. MCAS is strongly in favor of clean, renewable energy sources, such as solar, wind, and wave energy. We must reduce our dependency on carbon-based fossil fuels as rapidly as possible. However, we cannot make the change indiscriminately and without careful study of possible undesirable side effects. Wind turbines in particular can do much harm to both birds and bats. And interestingly, small wind turbines have been proven to kill proportionally more birds than large turbines, because the faster rotational speeds used for a small turbine make the blades less visible to flying creatures. The location of the turbine is all important in reducing the damage to wildlife. The wind turbine should not be placed in a location where birds and bats feed, roost, or nest, or in the route of their semi-annual migrations. It is my understanding that the proposed 40-foot wind turbine was originally classified by county staff as a utility pole. The problem is that utility poles do not kill birds and bats, and wind turbines do. The proposed location is in a bird-rich riparian woodland within 35 to 50 feet of a year-round flowing stream. On June 10, 2008, Dorothy Todkin and I performed a half-hour bird survey from a single point on the road adjacent to the proposed site. The story pole was still up at that point. Starting at 8:10 a.m., we observed by sight and ear 21 species of birds and at least 45 individuals. Of these, 7 were federally protected neotropical migrant species, 2 were California species of special concern, purple martin and olive-sided flycatcher. In addition, 2 other species of special concern are known to frequent the area, Fox's swift and northern harrier. This quick survey was performed after the spring migration was essentially complete, so that only summer resident birds were observed. No nighttime survey has been done since the required equipment is not readily available to MCAS, but the location is expected to support a variety of bats, as do most California riparian woodlands. Migratory songbirds, passerines, travel mainly at night. A preferred route for many species is along the coastline. Low clouds or precipitation will force them down into the range of a 40-foot wind turbine. An estimate of coastal bird mortality is 37 birds per wind turbine per year. This came from J.E. Winkleman, Proceedings of the National Aviation Wind Power Planning Meeting, Washington, D.C., 1994. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has recommended that wind turbines be shut down in the hours around dusk and again in the hours around dawn during about 6 months of the year in order to prevent harm to bats and migrating birds and to 2 federally listed species which have been detected near the proposed site, marbled murrelet and to a lesser extent spotted owl. The sizable literature on the subject of wind turbines and avian mortality emphasize location of the turbine as the critical issue. The recent joint report of the California Energy Commission and Department of Fish and Game, which has been submitted for the record, that's CEC 700-2007-008 CMF, October 2007, reiterates the necessity of assessing the proposed site for bird activity prior to any permit application or approval.
Mr. Wade, you got
You're over my last paragraph.
Please.
We therefore have 3 requests to make of the Board of Supervisors. Deny the present application outright, or failing that, require a meaningful biological assessment prior to considering the application. 2, adopt a Mendocino County policy on wind turbines requiring preliminary site assessments, focusing on bird and bat activity at the site, even for small-scale projects such as